Nobody saw this coming, and the entire WWE universe is still in shock. The mysterious masked man who attacked Bron Breakker has returned, and this time his target was Brock Lesnar. In a moment that left fans speechless, chaos erupted on Monday Night Raw, changing everything. Who is this masked attacker? Why did he choose Brock Lesnar? And what happens next could completely shake WWE to its core. WWE RAW descends into pure chaos as the mysterious masked man makes a shocking return. And this time, Brock Lesnar is the target. After weeks of unanswered questions surrounding the brutal attack on Bron Breakker, the same masked figure storms Raw and delivers a jaw-dropping assault on the Beast Incarnate, leaving the entire arena frozen in disbelief. Who is behind the mask, and why is he taking out WWE's most dominant forces one by one? Fans are stunned, theories are exploding online, and the implications for Raw's power structure have never been more dangerous. This moment could change WWE forever, and it all happened live. Subscribe for instant WWE updates, break down the mystery in the comments, and don't miss what happens next on Raw. The atmosphere inside the arena was absolutely suffocating with anticipation. Monday Night Raw had been building towards something massive all evening, with every segment feeling like a powder keg ready to explode. The crowd was on their feet, voices hoarse from hours of cheering and chanting, energy crackling through the air like electricity before a thunderstorm. Nobody in that building, from the fans in the nosebleed sections to the commentators at ringside, could have possibly predicted the absolute chaos that was about to unfold. What happened on February 2nd, 2026 will be talked about for generations. A moment so shocking and violent that it fundamentally altered the landscape of WWE forever. Brock Lesnar stood in the center of the ring, and his presence alone was enough to command absolute attention. The Beast Incarnate, the former UFC heavyweight champion, the man who has dominated WWE for over 2 decades, looked as dangerous and imposing as ever. His massive frame filled the ring, muscles rippling beneath his skin, that trademark scowl on his face that has intimidated countless opponents over the years. Paul Heyman stood beside him, microphone in hand, doing what he does better than anyone else on the planet. The Wiseman was in the middle of one of his signature promos, his voice rising and falling with theatrical precision, weaving together words that painted Brock Lesnar as the most unstoppable force in professional wrestling history. The crowd was eating it up, some booing the arrogance, others cheering for the undeniable truth in Heyman's words. Lesnar didn't need to speak. He never does. His presence speaks volumes, his reputation built on years of legitimate dominance both in WWE and in mixed martial arts. He simply stood there, arms crossed over his massive chest, occasionally nodding or smirking at something Heyman said, letting his advocate do the talking while he radiated danger and superiority. The camera operators circled the ring, capturing every angle of this masterclass in presentation, knowing that they were documenting what would become another iconic Brock Lesnar moment. Heyman was building towards something big. You could hear it in the cadence of his speech, the way his voice was rising in intensity and passion. He was talking about dominance, about legacy, about how Brock Lesnar had conquered everyone who had ever dared to step into his path. He mentioned past victories, destroyed opponents, championships won and defended with brutal efficiency. The crowd was hanging on every word, some holding up their phones to record, others simply watching with rapt attention, as Heyman painted the picture of an unstoppable champion who had no equal in WWE. Then the lights went out. Completely. Totally. The entire arena plunged into absolute darkness so sudden and complete that it felt like the world itself had been switched off. The crowd's roar of surprise and confusion was deafening, a wave of sound that washed over everything. Phone flashlights immediately started appearing throughout the venue, thousands of tiny lights creating an eerie constellation in the darkness. The commentators at ringside were scrambling, their voices rising with urgency and confusion, asking what was happening, speculating about technical difficulties, or perhaps a planned segment gone wrong. But this was no technical glitch. This was calculated. This was planned. This was the beginning of something terrifying. The darkness lasted for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds. When the lights came back on, the arena collectively gasped. There, standing on the entrance ramp, was a figure that sent chills down the spine of everyone watching. The masked man. The same mysterious attacker who had brutalized Bron Breakker weeks ago was back, and his attention was now fixed squarely on the ring where Brock Lesnar stood. The mask itself was something out of a nightmare. Dark, featureless except for the eye holes, it obscured any hint of identity while somehow making the person wearing it seem even more dangerous and unpredictable. The figure stood completely still, arms at his sides, posture radiating menace and purpose. He was dressed entirely in black, his physique clearly that of someone in peak athletic condition, muscles visible even through his clothing. But who was beneath that mask? Nobody knew. That uncertainty made everything about this moment even more terrifying. The crowd was absolutely losing their minds. Chants and screams filled the arena, a mixture of shock, excitement, and genuine fear at what they were witnessing. Signs were being waved frantically, fans pointing at the masked figure, turning to their friends with expressions of disbelief and excitement. Social media was about to explode, but in this moment, everyone in that building was too transfixed by what they were seeing to even think about their phones. Brock Lesnar's reaction was everything you would expect and nothing you could have predicted. The Beast Incarnate turned toward the entrance ramp, and for perhaps the first time in years, something resembling concern flashed across his face. Not fear, not quite, because Brock Lesnar doesn't do fear, but uncertainty, caution, the recognition that he was facing something unknown, something that had already proven capable of taking down one of WWE's toughest young stars in Bron Breakker. Paul Heyman had stopped talking, the microphone lowering from his mouth as he too stared at the masked figure, his expression transitioning from his usual smug confidence to something approaching genuine worry. The masked man began to move. His walk down the entrance ramp was slow, deliberate, methodical. Each step seemed calculated, measured, designed to build tension and dread. He didn't run. He didn't charge. He simply walked with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what they're capable of and has no doubt about the outcome of what's about to happen. The lighting in the arena had taken on an eerie quality, spotlights focusing on both the ring and the approaching figure, creating dramatic shadows that made everything feel more cinematic, more intense, more real. Lesnar began bouncing on the balls of his feet, his amateur wrestling background kicking in as he prepared for combat. His hands came up into a fighting stance, that legitimate MMA training evident in his posture and positioning. This wasn't going to be a typical wrestling confrontation with posturing and talking. This was going to be a fight, and everyone in the building knew it. The energy had shifted from entertainment to something more primal, more genuine, more dangerous. Paul Heyman wisely began backing away, moving toward the corner of the ring, clearly wanting no part of what was about to happen. He had seen Brock Lesnar destroy countless opponents over the years, but he had also seen the footage of what this masked man had done to Bron Breakker. The viciousness of that attack, the calculated brutality, the way it had left one of WWE's most promising young stars laid out and injured. Heyman's survival instincts were screaming at him to get out of the way, and for once, the usually brave advocate was listening to those instincts. The masked man reached the ring apron. He stood there for a moment, his head tilting slightly as he stared at Lesnar, studying him like a predator studying prey. Then, in one fluid motion, he slid under the bottom rope and into the ring. The crowd's noise reached a fever pitch, the anticipation almost unbearable. Two forces of nature were now in the same ring, separated by maybe 20 feet of canvas, both ready to explode into violence at any second. Lesnar didn't wait. That's not his style. The Beast Incarnate charged forward with shocking speed for a man of his size, covering the distance between himself and the masked man in the blink of an eye. He went for a tackle, looking to use his amateur wrestling pedigree to take this unknown threat to the mat where he could use his size and strength advantage. But something unexpected happened. Something that shocked everyone watching. The masked man moved. Not just moved, but moved with a speed and fluidity that seemed impossible for someone of his size. He sidestepped Lesnar's charge at the last possible second, using the Beast's own momentum against him. Lesnar crashed into the corner turnbuckles, his massive frame colliding with the steel posts with an impact that shook the entire ring structure. The sound echoed through the arena like a gunshot, and the crowd reacted with a mixture of gasps and cheers at witnessing someone actually evade Brock Lesnar's attack. Before Lesnar could recover and turn around, the masked man struck. A devastating kick to the back of Lesnar's knee buckled the Beast's leg, sending him down to one knee. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. Brock Lesnar, the man who had manhandled everyone from The Undertaker to John Cena, was down on one knee, and this mysterious attacker was just getting started. The masked man followed up with a brutal forearm strike to the back of Lesnar's head. The impact was sickening, the sound of flesh and bone colliding with flesh, and bone amplified through the arena's sound system. Lesnar's head snapped forward from the force, his hands instinctively going to the back of his skull. This wasn't the choreographed, pulled-punch wrestling that fans sometimes see. This felt real, felt stiff, felt dangerous. Another forearm, then another. The masked man was relentless, striking with precision and power, each blow landing with accuracy and devastating force. Lesnar tried to get to his feet, his legendary toughness and fighting spirit refusing to let him stay down. But every time he started to rise, another strike would come, keeping him off balance, keeping him vulnerable, preventing him from mounting any kind of effective defense. The commentators were screaming into their microphones, their voices cracking with the urgency of what they were witnessing. They were trying to describe the action, trying to convey the shock and brutality of what was happening, but words seemed inadequate to capture the moment. This was Brock Lesnar, the most dominant force in WWE history, being systematically dismantled by an unknown masked attacker. It didn't seem possible, yet it was happening right before everyone's eyes. Paul Heyman was in the corner of the ring, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. His hands were gripping the ropes so tightly his knuckles had turned white. He was shouting something, possibly calling for help, possibly trying to get Lesnar to fight back, but his voice was lost in the chaos of the arena noise and the sound of the continued assault. The masked man grabbed Lesnar by his arm and yanked him to his feet with surprising strength. For a brief moment they stood face to face, or rather face to mask. Lesnar's eyes showed something that fans had rarely, if ever, seen before. Genuine surprise mixed with the dawning realization that he might be in serious trouble. The masked man's posture was calm, collected, almost casual, as if beating down Brock Lesnar was just another day at the office. Then the masked man executed a move that brought the entire arena to its feet. He lifted Brock Lesnar, all 280-plus pounds of him, and drove him down with a spine-buster that shook the ring so violently that the cameramen at ringside had to steady themselves. The impact was absolutely devastating, Lesnar's back crashing into the canvas with such force that you could see the ring actually flex and bend from the impact. The masked man had just manhandled Brock Lesnar like Lesnar was a cruiserweight, and the impossibility of what everyone had just witnessed was written on the face of every fan in the building. But the masked man wasn't finished. Not even close. As Lesnar lay on the canvas, the wind clearly knocked out of him, trying to get his bearings, the masked attacker moved to the corner of the ring. He grabbed the top rope and began climbing, ascending to the top turnbuckle with an agility that seemed at odds with his powerful muscular frame. The crowd was on their feet now, everyone standing, phones raised, capturing this moment that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come. The masked man stood on the top turnbuckle, surveying his prone target. The arena lights caught the sheen of sweat on his exposed skin, the only visible part of his body besides his eyes. For a moment, he stood there like some dark angel of destruction, silhouetted against the lights, preparing to deliver something devastating. The anticipation was almost painful, the crowd holding its collective breath. He jumped. The aerial assault came with shocking grace and power, a diving elbow drop that would have made even the most acrobatic wrestlers envious. The masked man's elbow connected directly with Lesnar's sternum, the full weight and momentum of his body behind the strike. Lesnar's body convulsed from the impact, his legs kicking up instinctively, his face contorting in pain. The sound of the impact echoed through the arena like a car crash, and several fans in the front rows visibly winced in sympathy pain. The masked man got to his feet immediately, showing no signs of the toll that such a high-risk move should have taken on his own body. He looked down at Lesnar, who was clutching his chest and gasping for air, and there was something almost contemptuous in his body language. This wasn't just an attack. This was a statement. This was a message being sent not just to Brock Lesnar but to the entire WWE locker room. Security personnel were finally appearing at the top of the entrance ramp, dozens of them in their black shirts and khaki pants, looking uncertain about how to handle this situation. How do you stop someone who is currently demolishing Brock Lesnar? What kind of force would it take to intervene in this situation? They hesitated at the top of the ramp, clearly waiting for instructions or perhaps just hoping the situation would resolve itself. The masked man grabbed Lesnar again, pulling him up by his arm. Lesnar tried to fight back, throwing a wild punch that the masked man easily ducked under. The Beast Incarnate was clearly disoriented, his legendary toughness and fighting spirit still present but his body not responding the way it should. The masked man kicked Lesnar in the gut, doubling him over, then positioned him for what looked like it could be a powerbomb or possibly a piledriver. The crowd was chanting something, but it was impossible to make out the words in the chaos. Some were chanting for Lesnar, urging him to fight back, to tap into that legendary strength and turn the tables on his attacker. Others were chanting for the masked man, caught up in the excitement of seeing someone new and dangerous emerge as a legitimate threat. The divided reaction created a wall of sound that was almost overwhelming in its intensity. The masked man lifted Lesnar up, showcasing incredible strength as he hoisted the Beast Incarnate into the air. Then he executed a move that combined elements of a powerbomb and a slam, driving Lesnar down into the canvas with such force that the ring posts actually shifted slightly from the impact. Lesnar bounced once and lay motionless, and for the first time in perhaps his entire WWE career, he looked completely and utterly defeated. Paul Heyman had exited the ring during the chaos, standing at ringside with a microphone he wasn't using, just staring in absolute horror at what was happening to his client. The Wiseman, the man who always has the right words, who can talk his way out of any situation, was rendered speechless by the systematic destruction being inflicted on the Beast Incarnate. The security personnel finally made their move, flooding down the entrance ramp and surrounding the ring. But the masked man didn't seem concerned. He stood over Lesnar's prone body, looking down at his handiwork with what seemed like satisfaction. Then, slowly and deliberately, he raised one arm into the air, his fist clenched, in a gesture that was both triumphant and threatening. The crowd's reaction was deafening, a mixture of cheers and boos and shocked gasps all blending together into pure chaos. Medical personnel were rushing down the ramp now, following behind the security team. The sight of them added a layer of genuine concern to the proceedings. Brock Lesnar didn't need medical attention. Brock Lesnar was the one who put other people in need of medical attention. Seeing EMTs rushing to his aid was surreal, wrong somehow, a violation of the natural order of WWE. The masked man finally moved toward the ropes, but he didn't hurry. He took his time, stepping through the ropes with casual confidence, dropping down to the ringside area. Security personnel immediately surrounded him, but they seemed hesitant to actually put hands on him. They had just watched him demolish Brock Lesnar. Who among them wanted to be the first to try to restrain someone capable of that level of violence? The masked man walked through the sea of security like they weren't even there. He didn't push anyone or create additional confrontation. He simply walked, and the security personnel parted before him like water before a ship's bow. It was an incredible show of presence and intimidation, this mysterious figure commanding respect and fear without saying a single word. As the masked man walked up the entrance ramp, the cameras stayed on Brock Lesnar in the ring. The Beast Incarnate was being attended to by medical personnel, who were checking him for injuries, asking him questions, trying to assess the damage done by the brutal assault. Lesnar was conscious but clearly hurting. His hand pressed against his ribs, his breathing labored. Paul Heyman had climbed back into the ring and was kneeling beside his client, talking urgently, though his words couldn't be heard over the arena noise. The masked man reached the top of the entrance ramp and turned back to face the ring one final time. The spotlight caught him perfectly, creating a dramatic silhouette that would become one of the most iconic images in recent WWE history. He stood there for a long moment, staring down at the chaos he had created, at the broken beast lying in the ring, at the shocked faces of everyone in attendance. Then, without any gesture or acknowledgement, he turned and disappeared behind the curtain. The arena erupted into a frenzy of noise and activity. Fans were on their feet, screaming theories about who the masked man could be, arguing with their neighbors about what they had just witnessed, recording reaction videos for social media.